T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Global Watchman News. My name is Lori Swan. Hope you guys are all doing well. Real quick, if you're in the chat room, remember, keep it family friendly. There will be moderators in there. This is breaking news as of 10 minutes ago, and I'm sorry, guys. This is so emotional. Denver police have uncovered a sex trafficking nationwide sex trafficking. They're releasing the findings of an investigation. It says Tuesday, the 18th Judicial District Attorney's Office joins the FBI Denver in a press conference to discuss the results of a nationwide sex trafficking investigation. These people need to leave their hands off our children. Seriously. I'm going to take you to the press conference right now. And I'm sorry, I get emotional on these things because you know what? They're children. Damn it, you know?
Special Agent in charge of the Denver field office of the FBI, Michael Schneider.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today, and welcome to the FBI Denver field office. My name is Michael Schneider. I am the special agent in charge here in Colorado. We're here today to talk about Operation Cross Country, a national intelligence-driven FBI initiative focused on identifying and locating child victims of sex trafficking, built upon the success of our child exploitation and human trafficking task forces located across the country. In Colorado, the permanent task force includes detailees from the Denver Police Department, the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, the Colorado State Patrol, and the 17th Judicial District Attorney's Office. This year, our Operation Cross Country occurred on August 4th through August 6th, and the team was joined by some 30 members of state and local law enforcement agencies, many of which are represented here on the board, along with the U.S. Marshal Service and numerous victim advocacy groups. During the operation, FBI Denver and our partners recovered and provided services to 11 child victims of sexual exploitation. In addition, 27 missing or endangered children were located, and we were able to provide services to 15 of them. 11 adult victims were also recovered. 6 traffickers were identified, 2 of whom were arrested on unrelated felony warrants. Of note, the Denver field office located more victims than any other FBI field office across the country, and we were tied for the most number of subjects identified or arrested. What makes us unique here in Colorado is that our team took a 3-pronged, victim-centered approach. The first prong was arguably the most critical to our success, and that is the intelligence collection, analysis, and lead generation on the missing and endangered children in the state. The second prong involved the team effort with our task force members and local partners to locate the children across the state. And the third prong, which proved absolutely essential to the long-term impact of the program, is our victim specialists and advocates offering services and support to the child victims. We do identify traffickers and to make arrests, but the focus of this operation is recovering and assisting child victims. To highlight some of the great work that took place, in one instance, over the 3-day period, a minor was recovered, and the team was able to administer Narcan to save her life after she ingested fentanyl. In another situation, we encountered a female victim and rescued her 3-month-old baby who was in a car with a known sex trafficker. Since the 2012 inception of our task force, approximately 700 minors have been recovered. The task force receives between 40 and 50 tips every month from sources, including state and national hotlines and our community partners. I want to conclude by personally thanking all the task force member agencies and other organizations that assisted during this operation. This was absolutely fantastic work by the team, which resulted in a real impact on the lives of some of our most vulnerable victims. At this point in time, I want to turn the podium over to Sheriff Tyler Brown from the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office. Thank you, sir.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank the special agent in charge, Michael Schneider, and the Denver field office for all their help. I think really what this comes down to is a teamwork effort and a force multiplier. When our task force officers joined the FBI in these operations, we're able to reach out and touch so many different lives, and we're able to get these child victims the services necessary to get their lives back. And as the SAC mentioned, we were able to save a 3-month-old baby as well as her mother, and we were able to administer Narcan. And I think that that's something that we need to focus on, is that so many of these victims are also involved in drug abuse, and we need to make sure that we're getting them the resources necessary. And if it wasn't for all the member agencies involved, we wouldn't be able to reach as many lives as we have today. As we focus on this, I know many of you are going to have questions about how many victims we have. I think it's imperative that you recognize that we have such a robust response to child trafficking, that we are going after these criminals and addressing what they're doing in our community. It's imperative to recognize that we're holding these monsters accountable, and we're making sure that their victims are receiving the services necessary. And part of our partnership is working with district attorneys' offices. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to the 18th Judicial District Attorney, John Kellner.
All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. I think you all should understand one thing. 7th grade. There are kids right now starting school, going off to 7th grade in middle school. And why does that matter? Because the average age of the children recovered, the victims recovered during this operation was 13 years old. 11 kids, 6 boys, 5 girls that should have been in 7th grade. Instead, are victims of commercial sex exploitation. That is why operations like this matter. That is why we partner with our friends in the FBI and with the Sheriff's Office and so many others, as you can see here. But why is this successful? This is successful because we work with community partners as well, like from Silence to Save. These people are working day in and day out, finding and identifying these child victims and helping us connect with them and get them connected with resources. From this operation, we have leads on multiple sex traffickers and human traffickers who are terrorizing our communities. And it's easy to forget that this is a real thing. As you walk outside the doors of this building and you've got this, beautiful landscape, you've got every sort of store imaginable out there, but underneath the surface lurks this scourge on our society. And every time we engage in this operation, we recover more victims. We could probably do this every single month and find more kids at risk and get them connected with resources. So my hope and my message to anybody who's listening today is to be on the lookout for those kids, that average age of 13, those kids that should be in 7th grade. For the moms that are going to be picking up their kids today from the storm outside, and they're going to see them rush out of their middle school and get into the van and go home. Think about those other kids out there that are struggling. And if you see something, please say something, because we are here to help. I'd like to thank the 10 investigators from the 18th Judicial District Attorney's Office that participated in this operation and helped make it a success. This is not something they have to do, it's something they volunteer to do. And my office dedicates a human trafficking prosecutor specifically to these cases. That's why 2 of the longest sentences for human traffickers in the entire country come out of my office. Because when you dedicate resources to a problem, then you can actually start to tackle it. That's what we are doing here. That child that was talked about earlier, this kid, a runaway, who was found outside of a shopping center in Boulder, about 17 years old. And when they go in to try to help this child, this person had just been using fentanyl, just smoking fentanyl. And they get an ambulance together and have to administer Narcan to save this kid's life. The connection between the commercial sex exploitation of these kids and drug abuse cannot be overstated. This is truly an interconnected issue and one we need to look at holistically if we ever want to truly tackle this problem. So thank you again to our partners of the FBI. Thank you to all the many agencies that participated in this operation and made it a success.
Thanks, John. So John mentioned From Silence to Saved, which is one of the non-governmental organizations that we partner with. We do have a representative here today from that organization. Can answer questions as well, and we'll take questions now. Anybody? Reporters? Yeah, Kim.
So I'm just wondering, for people at home, how does this work? How do the human traffickers actually find their victims and hold them in? Where are they finding them? How does this happen?
So we see the traffickers identify their victims in many different ways. Frequently, they will take advantage of social media to identify kids online. Many times, they'll just find kids in areas of our community. Most of these kids come from challenging backgrounds. Nobody chooses this way of life, and the traffickers are able to take advantage of the vulnerabilities of these victims to exploit them and get them into this lifestyle. And then they further exploit them once they've been able to do that.
So just following up on that, without getting into obviously the graphic detail, but like what's happening to these kids? I mean, people throw that term around, like being human traffic. What does that mean in these specific?
Sure. The focus of Operation Cross Country was primarily on the sexual exploitation of these victims, and so as you can imagine, the traffickers are using these kids as a mechanism to make money, and are trafficking them and making profit off these victims.
And were some of them being held against their will?
So certainly these are all minors, and so that's a challenging question to answer. What we see is that a lot of times, a lot of these kids have what we would describe as a trauma bond with their traffickers. The traffickers will provide certain services and protection to these children, and the children believe that sometimes that the traffickers are actually providing support and services to them when it couldn't be any further from the truth. The traffickers are able to bring the children in and provide some level of comfort to them, and then exploit them for their own benefit.
When it comes to the resources that you're either providing or pointing these minors in that direction, how is that happening to facilitate that they continue those resources, to utilize those resources? Because oftentimes we'll see repeated behavior.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and goes directly into the long-term impact of this program is the ability of many of the victim advocacy groups that we work with, and their ability to continue to maintain contact with these victims. It can be a challenging job, but our folks are very good at what they do, and continue to do what they can to maintain that relationship with the children and provide this basic level of comfort and services to them to help get them on the right path. Absolutely.
Sure. I saw you ready.
Oh, no, I was just paying attention. My name's Janelle Goodrich, and I'm the executive director and founder of From Silence to Saved. And to answer your question, there is a lot of repeat, right? So the statistic is more often than not, they will return to their trafficker or abuser up from anywhere from 5 to 7 times, sometimes more. And so it's our job to make sure that we intrude on every aspect of their life, I would say, whether it comes to their family, their school, Department of Human Services is involved, law enforcement that's overseeing their case, to make sure that every aspect is wrapped around them to be trauma informed, and get them the services that they need long term. We have a very small window as they're a minor until they're adults, and then the services are different. And I partner and work closely with a lot of anti-adult trafficking agencies to do those long-term things. And if they go back in, then we show up again and we just keep going. Yeah.
Can you address the kind of nightmare that they're going through while they're in the hands of the traffickers?
I've never personally been trafficked, so I wouldn't want to speak on their behalf, but I would speculate to say that basic human rights are taken from them. As he spoke about trauma bond, you deal with things almost like a form of Stockholm syndrome. You start to feel bonded to that person. And so it's almost a form of brainwashing.
And what's that challenge for you guys? How does that
Showing them what proper and healthy relationships and unconditional love is, and that continue to show up without expecting anything in return.
It was mentioned that you guys could do this every month.
Okay, I've composed myself, and I do apologize. Get very emotional on these things, but so this was just broken 25 minutes ago. It was literally 10 minutes old when I started this stream, and started playing that. She mentioned a lot. And you guys in the chat room, you know, I absolutely adore you guys, and you guys raise some very interesting questions and points. I know the people that run these organizations, these trafficking rings. Sometimes these people don't even know who they are because they have people that are underneath them, and this goes high on the chain. We're talking, you know, people. I started talking about this a while back, and one of the people that I used to be friends with turned it around and made it disgusting and dirty on my part. But there was, when I lived in Phoenix, there was, it was a urban legend. Let's just put it that way. It was an urban legend, and I don't know anybody personally that was involved in it, but things just didn't add up, and you kind of could make your own decisions and your own, you know, put your own conclusions onto it. But there was an urban legend that there was an organization working in the Phoenix, Las Vegas, Denver, Albuquerque, that four corner area, and it went very high. It went as far as, you know, police, lawyers, judges, the governors. I mean, it went so high. So, you know, you had a hard time catching these people. But the woman that was just on, she mentioned a couple of things. She mentioned about trauma bonding, and she mentioned about, you know, how a person who's abused will return to their abuser an average of 5 to 7 times. I can attest to that. Being in an abusive relationship for 5 years, I left Mark numerous times and always went back every single time, to the point where I had him arrested, and they got him on the way to work. He left the house that morning, and they got him at the corner. And the detective brought his truck back to the house, and he knocked on the door, and he said they'd taken him in. And we had stood there and talked for about 45 minutes. And he told me, he says, if you let him back in here, I'm coming back. He's like, I will be back, you know. And of course he came back, and, you know, the abuse continued. But she mentioned something that, you know, about trauma bonding and about Stockholm syndrome. That's what you're working with these kids and these adults. And she mentioned about their rights being taken away from them. You're talking about people, adults and children, who depend on their captors for the basic essentials of life: food, shelter, clothing. And, you know, it comes to a point where they're so broken down, they don't think that they can survive without their captors, it's sad. Just recently, I came across a video of a Houston CPS worker. And when I say that this goes high on the chain, I'm talking Child Protection Services throughout the United States is involved in this. Child Protective Services is not a government entity. They are not policed by anybody. There was a Houston CPS worker, and you guys can Google that, or not Google, but you can do a search on YouTube. Just type in CPS worker tells young woman or young girl to prostitute. That's what she did. A Houston CPS worker told this young girl who they were, now get this, they were housing her in a hotel, unsupervised. I forgot how old she is. She was 14 years old. A 14-year-old child being housed in a hotel. Now, I don't know if you guys know about the places that the placements for these people, but they're not the safest of places. Drug use, trafficking, everything goes on in this culture, in these communities that they put these kids into. I mean, literally, they admit that they had her in a hotel, and the CPS worker basically told her, if you want your needs met, because the kid asked for food, and she told her go home prostitute. She was fired, thankfully, but that's just one. That's just one CPS worker. This is happening, and it's just one in Houston. It's happening all over the place. That's why when I hear about a child being placed in CPS custody, it terrorizes me. And you've got people that get butt hurt on social media and will call CPS to get back at the parent. You're sick. If you do that, you're sick. To get CPS involved, and I can see if there's a child that's being neglected and abused, call a relative. Getting CPS involved is just, I don't know, the chances of worse things happening to the children is too high. And it's our responsibility to protect the children from this. Somebody had mentioned in the chat room, that they found it interesting that the FBI was talking about this when most of the FBI are involved in this. Absolutely, I'm not defending at all. I'm not defending at all anybody, any what do I say, alphabet agencies, because they're bad. All right, we know they're part of the problem. They're part of the cabal. But this, I think, what happened was, I think it was somebody outside. It was a person who observed something and they reported it. Well, if that's the case, they really have no choice but to address the situation and to do something about it, because that way no eyes will be on them. And now they look like the heroes, right? Now they look like the heroes. My question is, I don't know if you guys note or observe or heard it, but the FBI agent was kind of taking credit for saying that the Denver office has more rescues than any other agency across the United States. Well, what about these 17 followers, 17th letter of the alphabet followers, who are claiming that the tunnels have been flooded and that hundreds of thousands of kids have been rescued? Is that not real? Is that not true? I don't think it is. I think that's part of the brainwashing of the 17 cult. And yeah, I'm going to call it a cult. You don't like it, I don't care. Click the button, go. It is what it is. It's a cult. And everybody in my chat room right now will attest to that, because they know it is too. And everybody around me will attest to that, because they know it is too. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out nothing that they say is coming to fruition. So I think that just like everything else, people are blind that CPS is involved. Absolutely. And maybe I will do a show on the urban legend someday. But I tried to tell a friend a few years ago, and she twisted it around and made it sound like I was involved in it when I had nothing to do with it. I was going to write an article. I was going to actually expose it. But now, come to find out, looking back, these people protect organizations like the ones I was going to expose. So it makes me question her as a person, first off, and why she would have a problem with me exposing it. I don't know. Yeah, so Stu Peters documentary. Yes, if you guys don't know, Stu Peters just did, and I know, guys, don't come after me for Stu Peters. I don't follow Stu. I don't. But let me get the name of it. Hold on a minute. Stu Peters is over on, I believe it's Rumble. Go over to Rumble. There we go. Stu Peters on Rumble. That's not what I wanted. Bitch. That's not what I wanted either. All right, let's just go to Rumble. Yeah, thank you, Marie. It's called These Little Ones. Yeah, go over on Rumble. Let me pull it up real quick. These Little Ones. Thank you. Go over. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Rumble. Here we go. Go over on Rumble and type up in the search Stu Peters. There we go. Look for Stu Peters and right here, world premiere, These Little Ones. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I made it literally 8 minutes into it and I had to stop. I was in tears. I was crying too hard. I couldn't finish watching it. Not to say that I won't finish watching it. I couldn't, and I have it at this point. There are just some things that I just cannot, my spirit just cannot watch it. I know what's happening. I will call people out for it. I don't need to see it to know that it's happening. They're all in on it. Yeah, absolutely. They're all in on it. But the thing of it is what happened, like what happened today, is an outsider saw these children, saw what was happening, and blew the whistle on it. And that's what we need to do. We need to be the eyes and ears of these children. We need to be the voice of the voiceless. It is our responsibility to take care of these children. They are after the children. We've known this for a hell of a long time. They're after the children. As a truck driver, we received a email a number of years ago. I can't remember, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, from the OOIDA, which is a organization that owner-operators, people that run under their own authority. We don't work for anybody. We have our own truck, own business. We don't drive for a company. We drive for ourselves. They sent out an email to us outlining things that we should be watching for out on the road for trafficking. And now there is a universal symbol for help. Let me see if I can find it if you guys don't know what it is. Here it is. Just a second. Let me pull it up. And pay attention to people. And this was a problem. And to me, this was more of a problem back, not rephrase that. It's still a problem, but it was a horrible back when we were wearing the mask because you couldn't see the child's face. You could just see the eyes. And it's my opinion, as a lot of other people, that they were using that opportunity to cover these faces to move these kids around. I do believe that, and I still believe it to this day. But here is a video showing the universal sign for help me.
Are in need of help, or if you see this symbol, you need to get help immediately. Open hand, thumb across your palm, and close your four fingers into a fist.
Your hand is up like this, then you tuck your thumb in and all four fingers over that thumb and back and forth. A motorist
notified our 911 dispatch center that he had observed a young lady in a passenger car, that she appeared to be in distress, and that she was giving the TikTok signal to him that she was in distress and had a fear for her life.
Get acquainted with that universal sign. Get acquainted with it, know it, look for it. Teach it to your children if they are ever in trouble to give that sign. If you are in an abusive relationship, seek out help. You're not alone. There's so many resources out there for women and men who are in abusive relationships. You're not alone. I've been there. I know it's hard to leave, and I know I fell into that, what the woman said, that a person abused will go back to her abuser between 5 and 7 times before she escapes. That is very true. You do. She mentioned the Stockholm Syndrome. She mentioned trauma bonding. All real. It's all real. But you're not alone. Reach out to somebody. Why would their timing be impeccable? What's the timing have to do with it? Not to Mary says the timing is impeccable. What's the timing have to do with it? I don't understand what's going on where this timing would be. I don't get that. Yes, that would explain why there was a woman that was held captive for decades, and her person that was holding her captive had a heart attack, and she saved the person's life. Absolutely. Look at guys. If a person is taken at a young enough age, and they have that strong trauma bond, the person that the abductor can pretty much let that person roam free, and that person will come home on their own. The trauma bonding is, it's almost, well, it's not it. Trauma bonding is a soul tie. You form a soul tie with that person. I don't know if you guys know what a soul tie is, but it's strong and it does bond. And what's crazy about it is, I mean, I still have feelings for Mark after 5 years of abuse, because I lived for 5 years thinking, if I just loved him just a little bit more, he'll wake up tomorrow and he'll see that I'm not the person that he says I am, or that he accuses me of being, and he'll love me and we'll live happily ever after. 5 years I did that. For 5 years. God took Mark out of my life. I didn't leave Mark. As horrible as that is, I did not leave Mark. I would probably be dead today. But he was an alcoholic. He had already had 2 DUIs in the state of Arizona. And he was at the bar down the street with his brother. I had stayed home. We had fought earlier that day, and he invited me out, and I didn't want to go. And he left the bar drunk to go get gas, so he didn't have to get it in the morning to go to work. And he got hit with his 3rd DUI. Mandatory 7 years in prison. 7. So God took him out of my life. Or I probably would have been dead, because I did not leave him on my own. So I see the bond. I see the mentality of people that are abused. Yes, that's why you never ask anybody. Exactly. You know, I have a friend on, a couple of friends that I was friends with out in Phoenix at that time. One in particular, I used to go to her house all the time when Mark would throw me out. And I would have bruises, and I would have black eyes, and I would have big old bleeding welts in my hairline. He loved to get me in the head where it couldn't be seen. But sometimes he would get my face, and but every time I went to her house, her door would open and she would never ask any questions. And she knew that within 24 to 48 hours, I would pack up the stuff that I had that I brought with me, and I would just leave. And she knew where I was. I was back home in Mark. The FBI pulled a rabbit out of hat when they're talking about disbanding the FBI. No one's going to disband the FBI. Nobody is. FBI was created through Project Paperclip, just like the CIA, just like NASA. There's no disbanding the FBI. That's like saying that they're going to disband, I don't know, the school system. It's not going to happen. So, okay, that's it. I'll put the link in the description below for you guys to read up the article. Look, I'm not defending the FBI. I'm not defending any alphabet agency. I'm just saying, look, they had no choice but to bring this to the attention because somebody on the outside, a private person, a person that was out in public saw what was happening. And that's really what I want you guys to concentrate. I don't care about the FBI. I don't care about the alphabet agencies. You guys are fixated on the agency. You need to be more fixated on the victims. Watch your surroundings. Be aware of your surroundings. Watch for people in cars asking for help. Make eye contact with people. We are so enveloped in our phones nowadays, looking down at our phones that we don't see. How many times a day, or how many times, really not a day, but how many times in the last 5 years of you looking on your phone, driving in the car, have you missed somebody asking for help? That's what I'm saying. Don't fixate on the agency. Bring awareness to the victims. Be the voice of the people without the voice. Watch your children. Be aware of your surroundings. Scream and yell if you have to get help for the people that you know that need it. All right, that's all I got for you. I will be back. I don't know if we'll be back tonight. Probably not. My husband's home tonight, Tuesday. Tomorrow night, I'll be over on Rise of the New World Order. And yeah, we'll see you there. Until next time, guys, remember, eyes open, no fear.